Howdy, howdy, howdy. What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. We will go through the sponsors here real quick. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Ryan Feager at Goldwater Bank. If you're thinking about a move or a way to save some money, Goldwater Bank is your answer. Rates that are among the lowest in the country, and with their experienced hand-picked staff, you have yourself a pretty easy decision. I've personally asked any question I could think of, and I got an immediate answer. That's how well-versed their team is. Trust me, if you are at least thinking there is a reason for you to reach out to a lender, make your first call to Goldwater Bank, and I guarantee it'll be your last. Plus, being a federally chartered bank means they are among the elite few to be granted that status. So basically what that means is that no matter where you're thinking about moving in the country, they're going to be there for you. No fluff, no filler, just straightforward answers. For you or anyone you know, I personally recommend Ryan Feager with Goldwater Bank Mortgage, located right down south of St. Louis in Arnold, Missouri. You can call him at 636-287-0786. Ryan Feager with Goldwater Bank. Reach out to him, see if they can help you out, save you some money. We are also brought to you by Thoroughbred Wrestling Academy. Listen, you only get one shot at bringing your kids up. Why mess around with something that's that serious? Make sure you're bringing them up in the right environments with the right mindsets and the right approaches. TWA uses a science-based best practice approach to developing happy, healthy, and confident wrestlers who are not only prepared to reach the highest levels of wrestling, but also personal development aimed at creating young men and women who are prepared to be successful in all endeavors. TWA is consistently able to utilize an individualized approach based on what's best for each unique student. We don't just develop kids, we develop your kids. TWA is now enrolling all ages from 5 to 18 years, no experience necessary. We are also opening registration next week for our youth preseason camp, which will be November 3rd, I believe. That should be a Saturday. Whatever that Saturday is, should be the 3rd. You can see the website for more details, twamissouri.com. So on today's episode, we have Coach Jeremy Spates. I got to go over and visit Coach Spates over at Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville. It's a little drive over there. It's been a couple hours driving over there, hanging out with him. It was really enjoyable. Coach Spates is a really good friend of mine, and so I really enjoyed our time walking around campus. Beautiful campus, talking, telling stories, reminiscing. It's always a good time. I really enjoy my time that I spend with Jeremy. He's a very genuine, down-to-earth guy, just a really good dude, and I hope you guys will enjoy it as well. I got to warn you, about 44 minutes in, it sounds like there's some problems connecting with Coach Spates' microphone. It's pretty annoying, and I really apologize for it, and I'll make sure that it doesn't happen again. But if you can make it through, there's some good stuff in there, and it's not as bad as it starts out as. So I apologize for that. Hopefully it doesn't ruin it. Let me know if it does, though, and I'll make sure that that doesn't ever happen again. So without any further ado, Coach Jeremy Spates.
Hey.
So what's up, Coach Spates?
Not much. I'm excited to be on the podcast here. So.
It's a podcast that doesn't have a name yet.
Yeah, we were going to talk about that. I figure we could get into that a little bit later.
Yeah, I mean, the vision of it is, the thing is I try to compare it to a couple things for people to reference. The problem is that the ones that I reference, like, nobody listens to, I guess. So no one knows still what I'm talking about, even when I use examples.
Yeah.
But the idea is just basically we don't have any kind of like predetermined or set agenda.
Okay.
It's definitely not a formal interview of any kind. Just meeting with people that I know or that I want to know and hanging out and talking about whatever we talk about. It's mostly wrestling people, so it tends to be wrestling related, but it doesn't have to be.
Okay. Well, I'm excited about that. I've actually been listening to a lot of podcasts recently. I hadn't been into them till the last probably two years, and I've really enjoyed doing it. So it's kind of interesting to be doing my first one.
This is the first one you've ever been on?
First podcast I've ever done.
Popping your podcast cherry? That's pretty sweet. Feel honored.
I will say to the listeners, it's allergy season and I am a little stuffed up here, so my voice may sound a little bit weird, and I got a water here. I'm going to sip.
I brought a water too,
bit.
because I've had the same situation. I was coughing on the way over. Okay. I was like, nobody's going to want to hear me hacking.
Yeah. I think it's just that time of year.
Yep, for sure. So speaking of that time of year, I guess you guys are doing preseason type stuff or getting started in that stuff?
Yep, we're in our preseason, and actually we're walking down my favorite pacing trail here on campus.
And we are on campus at the beautiful Southern Illinois University at Edwardsville.
Yep.
And it is awesome weather today. Expecting some thunderstorms, but continue. We're going down this trail.
Yeah, so we're on, like you mentioned, on campus. Our campus is a beautiful, huge campus. I think it's a little over 4 square miles. And there's all these bike jogging paths that go throughout campus. So I talk on the phone a lot as a coach, talking to alumni and recruits and coaches. And so this is one of the places where I come to pace outside so that I'm in nice weather. Although we're passing some tractor here, so it might be...
That's all right. It adds some depth to the background.
Yeah.
So we're not in some stuffy studio.
Yeah, no, it
recording
is.
This.
Like
Mostly
you said,
because I can't afford a studio. But.
Like you said, it's probably about 80 degrees. The sun's out, and it is just an awesome day. So,
for sure. So what's your guys' preseason look like? What do you?
We mixed it up.
I know you probably pull a little bit from the days of your experiences when you were in college, and I'm sure some of those are similar to mine.
Yep.
Came through the same place, so I'm sure you draw on some of that, but doing your own kind of twist on it too.
Yeah, definitely. So we've always done very similar to the Missouri preseason where you mentioned we both wrestled at, and we usually do. Before the season, there's 7 weeks. So once we start school, there's 7 weeks. Those first 2 weeks, we usually go a little bit lighter, let the guys kind of get acclimated. You have a lot of meetings. We've got our NCAA compliance meeting, our concussion testing, our team rules meeting, things like that. So those first couple weeks, we go a little bit lighter. We'll get in the weight room a few times, have some open mats, just letting the guys get back. And then we get into a 5-week harder preseason where we're doing a lot more running and lifting, getting on the mats. The NCAA actually changed this. You may not know this.
I don't.
Yet. The NCAA changed the rule. So in the past, it was 8 hours. In your off season, you're allowed 8 hours. During your season, you're allowed 20 hours. Right. That's practice, lifting, everything, and that's in place to make sure that the student athletes don't get too much put on them. I was talking with our compliance director yesterday, and it's like, with wrestling, we're never going over our 20 hours anyway, because wrestling's too grueling of a sport. Right. If you were spending all that time, you'd be worn out and overtraining. But they changed it. It used to be the preseason, your 8 hours was, you have 6 hours of strength and conditioning and 2 hours of skill instruction. So you can be on the mats for 2 hours. Everything else has got to be running, lifting, those type of things. But they changed it this year to 4 and 4. So you can do 4 hours of skill instruction and 4 hours of strength and conditioning. We actually are still probably a little bit closer. We're definitely doing more wrestling this year than we have. But I do believe the preseason is to, one, get in shape, and make sure. Right. And then there's a little bit of mental toughness that comes from that preseason, especially when you see incoming kids freshman year. There's not a lot like running stadiums or hitting 5 and 6 mile loops, things like that. So a little bit to build that mental toughness. So right now our schedule, we work out, we do one morning lift during the week, pretty much always during the preseason, postseason, during the season. So Monday morning we lift. Monday afternoon, we're actually doing our club practice right now through our USA Wrestling Club. We've got the regional training center. So we're doing it as more of a club practice. There's some local kids that are coming up that wanted to get good workouts with our guys. So we've been doing that on Monday. Tuesday, we're back on the mats, and then we usually do a little bit on the mat, and then we'll run. So today, for example, we're getting towards the end of our preseason. we're going to do a 5-mile loop, and we're walking along the beginning of the 5-mile loop here. So we start back where we started.
Well, at least it's a scenic 5 miles.
It's a nice 5 miles. You go out here, you go out by our soccer stadium, which you've seen before. We come out across, go around campus, and then come back over by the lake,
okay.
and then hit this trail and finish off, actually right back here behind us. So that is kind of one of the things that I stole from Missouri. Coach Smith called it a 5-mile loop. I think some people have mapped it, and it's closer to a 6-mile loop.
Okay, I can add some in here.
Okay.
So when I got in school, which I really just came in the year after you left.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always known it as the 6-miler.
Okay.
And since then, it's been changed to the 7-miler.
Oh, is that what? Okay? Am I a mile off? I could be a mile off.
So it's like
that.
now, it's so it went from 5-miler probably to a 7-miler. So I think it's a little closer to that, and I think they've changed. I'm not sure now. I can't. This is not speaking for now. This is for years ago when I was there. I know the route changed a couple. It's the same route, but I think the direction changed.
I think one of the guys actually, our new graduate assistant is Barlow McGee,
right.
who was the 125-pounder for Mizzou the last few years. So I was actually picking his brain not too long ago and saying, and some of it just for nostalgia reasons as we're talking right now, but, what did you guys do? You still doing that loop? And, we were walking through it and laughing and everything like that. So, yeah, that's an interesting one. And I got a funny story that I think you'll appreciate.
Well, I was going to ask you about some other stories as well. So when you finish this one, I got a couple other stories I wanted to hear about.
All right, I got one you'll like. So I'm a pretty good runner, especially distance. I ran the mile when I was in junior high and stuff like that. And we run this 6-mile loop, and Mark Bader was my roommate. We worked out a lot together throughout, and people probably wouldn't realize this, but looking at him, but he's a really good runner. And he would beat me on the 6-mile loop. I came in...
Wait, who is this?
Mark Bader.
Okay.
Mark Bader.
The bus.
The bus is a great runner.
Okay, I thought that's what you said, but then you were saying he was a good runner,
yes.
So I just wasn't sure.
And so,
I believe it. But.
Yeah, and we were, like I said, we were roommates and very competitive with each other, and so it always bothers me. I never won the 6-mile loop. I just couldn't do it. As hard as I tried, he would get this huge lead because I was better towards the end, and I'd be chasing him down for a while. I couldn't see him. Then at the end, when you turned on to the big downhill
on Providence,
yeah. I'd see him, and then I'd start my kick. I used to look up to Steve Prefontaine, so I had a kick. That was my thing. And
we are walking into a tunnel too, so
yeah, it might change a little bit in here.
It's not a very long tunnel. So.
This is our only tunnel too, until we hit it on the way back, so that'll be good. But I always came in second or third. I think my freshman year, Cliff Sutcliffe won, I think, a few of them. I'm not 100% positive on that, but never won one. So always frustrated, always trying to catch up, usually second to Bader. And the one year, I come running down the hill, not at Providence, but one of the first big hills that you go down after you pass that grocery store.
Forum.
Yeah, yep. So
that's the Schnucks.
Yeah, so when you take a left, you take a left at Schnucks, and then you come down a big hill and then up a really, really big
Heartbreak Hill.
Yes.
By the MAC now.
Yes. Okay. So
the Missouri Athletic Center or something like that.
Okay.
Okay. It's like it has indoor soccer or something. Like that.
So I come down the hill and I'm running, and I see Bader laid up on the side. He had rolled his ankle. He rolled his ankle a lot in college for some reason.
Weak ankles. Dude.
Weak ankles. But he had rolled his ankle and he's laying on the side. And I'm like, that sucks. Here's one of my best friends. He's laying there hurt. But in my head, I'm like, I'm going to beat him. And there was the checkpoint up at the top of that hill where the coaches sat and sometimes gave us water.
Sometimes sat and drank the water. Ran by.
Well, you're talking about Horton, probably.
Or Fritz. Fritz liked to do stuff like that. Horton would, he'd like, what? I don't mean to interrupt your story. It's just very quick.
I like it.
One time at a camp, we were late, and he made us run. He dropped us off 7 miles out of town in this town in Kansas where we were doing a camp at a high school. and he told us to be back before second session. That was our lunch. So halfway through, it was down a gravel road, and he comes flying up this gravel road, and he's like, hey guys, left you guys a box of waters. It's about half a mile up under a shade tree, and then cut a donut in this gravel road, kicked up all this dust while we were running. And we had to find the water. Like, he didn't give it to us. Sorry.
No, not a problem. That's really funny, and I like that. That's definitely a Horton thing. But so I see Mark, and I'm coming running by. I'm like, what happened? He's like, I rolled my ankle. I'm like, are you all right? He's like, yeah, I think so. I said, I'll let the coaches know, and just kept running. And that was the only time I won the 6 mile loop. I beat Bader on a technicality, but
it's not a technicality.
There's no asterisk in the record book, so I'm claiming that one.
He came up lame. Freaking wear an ankle brace. Get high tops. I don't know what to tell you. Gotta address the issue.
So going back to our preseason, today we'll do a 5 mile loop. And then on Wednesday, we lift and condition. Then Thursday, we'll get back on the mats. And then Friday, we lift and do hill sprints. And actually, this is something we're trying a little bit differently, too, which I'm really interested in. I think it's working so far. Our strength coaches, they're really good. I call them strength coaches. That's not their exact title. They do a lot more than just the strength. They do our nutrition. They do a lot of things like this. And actually, we're going to cut off and we're going to walk up this grass trail because it's pretty cool.
It's like a good disc golf lane.
So they have this is. It took me a while to figure it out. I drove one of our big recruits, Justin Ruffin, around on these grass trails because we were killing a little bit of time in our golf cart. But it's the water lines. There's a lake on campus, and so they keep these mowed so that the trucks can go out and service the water lanes. But it's pretty neat, so I figure we'll walk up here.
Yeah.
But our strength coaches are really doing a lot with heart rate, trying to monitor your heart rate, try to control your breathing, things like that. And so they're doing, I'm probably going to butcher it, but they're doing a lot of tempo things where we're doing these hill sprints, but guys are wearing the heart monitors. They have a set pace that they want to get you to, so you stay in that optimal heart rate range. And then the purpose of it is to increase our heart rate, increase our recovery time, and just make them overall better athletes. So that's one of the things we're doing on Fridays now, and that's been pretty neat to see. As an old school wrestling coach, it's hard to change.
Right.
So, it was tough for me to relinquish some of those things, but I think it's going to be good for us in the future.
So what about? Because this is something I keep coming across is I've worked close with a sports psychologist and with a biofeedback kind of expert in one was Dr. Renee Mapes, who was a sports psychologist while I was at Mizzou. Yeah. Worked closely with her on the sports psychology side, and she's teamed up with Erica Tiemann out of University of Illinois, actually. Has done some stuff in Mizzou. I can't remember if she was at school there or taught there for a while. But what they are doing is monitoring like similar stuff, but even more than just your heart rate. So they're doing, accelerometers. It's a thing and you wear it, right? So you wear it for like a week, and it gives you like your sleep and recovery, your heart rate, your, how much movement you did. And what they're looking at is like stress and recovery. So like how much stress you're experiencing, and then whether when you're sleeping or you're getting rest, are you recovering the amount that you've been spending. The analogy that they gave me was like a battery.
Hey, how you doing?
So what they want to make sure is that when you're stressing, that you're spending your energy out of your battery, but you're getting enough sleep and recovery time, and other times like that you recharge that battery.
Yeah.
And so if you're working at a deficit, it doesn't work, right?
Yep.
And not to, that's not exactly what I was trying to get at, but with the heart rate monitor stuff, the little bit that I've talked to some people about this, what they say is that a lot of the wrestlers like train over their zone, like where you want to be.
Yep.
And the debate that I had is, I believe in that. Obviously, it's science, and I'm not an idiot. But the intangibles that you kind of touched on earlier is like that mental edge that you get from being over that threshold. So from the physical, the biometrics of how your body works, I 100% agree. But it's very hard to measure the part where it's like how tough you're getting by being out of that zone. Yeah. And I don't think that you would want to be there all the time or anything like that. But I think that you have to have times of that to deal with uncomfort, or deal with discomfort, deal with discomfort and deal with that, being really, really tired, being in a position where you are breaking your body down. And I don't think you want to make a habit of that, because that's how you injuries and overtraining, and you're gonna hurt your performance. But that's where it's like, where do you find that medium ground of getting the gain of the mental edge, but not going too far to where you're hurting yourself physically?
Yep. And honestly, the injuries is really kind of what spurred us to do this. We had a lot of injuries last year. Honestly, I think some of it was freak things. We had one kid who had a rare spinal disease from when he was coming through puberty that they just found out.
Right.
We had, a couple shoulders, which are normal in wrestling, but a lot of it was early in the season, and the one thing that the strength staff and our training staff was saying is building to that peak, and increasing your peak. And so that's one of the things, rather than jumping right into a 5-mile loop that first week, we started a little bit slower, and we increased every week to where we build up to the 5-mile loop.
Right.
So that's one of the things that I'm changing a little bit based off the science of it. But one of the things I told our weight coaches, we got into our second or third week of the preseason, and things were going really well. I'm really excited about our preseason, honestly, but I told him, I think we just need to do more. And he said, okay, well, explain to me what you're saying. And I said, I agree with the science, like you said.
Right.
I think you phrased it, I'm not an idiot.
Right.
Not going to say that science doesn't work, but there's also plenty of examples of people doing things that you're not supposed to scientifically be able to do.
Right.
And the biggest thing that I tried to relay to them is, an experience of mine when I got done with a really tough December, January. We had gone, I think, 5 or 6 weeks in a row where I had wrestled top 10 guys, tough matches, you're cutting weight, and I was past that point where I'm feeling good and I'm at that optimal recovery to go.
Sure.
But I had to wrestle.
Right.
I needed to go out and win that next match for our team. I needed to go out and win that next match for me, for the seedings, for the NCAAs. And, you see that all the time. Wrestlers are able to push beyond that mental barrier. And I think you see it in other sports too. It's not just wrestling.
Right.
But I don't think you see it as much in a lot of the team sports, because, for an example, if you hit that breaking point in a soccer game, they can pull somebody else out and put them in there and give you a minute or two of rest so you can get that heart rate back down and you could get that recovery. Does that mean you're going to get to 100%? No.
Sure.
But if you're running at 40, can you restart or put somebody else in, get back to 80%, and then come back and do it?
Right.
Well, you can't do that in a wrestling match.
No.
Not like you can tag somebody out and say,
right.
I'm broken. The other thing I think that factors into it too is, I've told our strength coaches this a few times. I agree with the science, but I'm also looking at results. And, I think you will see that a lot of wrestlers can do things that you don't think are possible. And I think that's one of the things we pride ourselves on, honestly. It's like, it is such a mentally tough sport that, we pride ourselves that we're able to do things that maybe not all people can do.
Sure. Yeah, I think the way that I relate to this is I have a problem now. like this used to be a benefit to me, but now it's an issue, is I don't know how to stay within that zone and build up my zone. So one thing I've struggled with is trying to like work out on a regular basis that's not just wrestling. Like, but the problem is that I generally will say, okay, the smart thing to do is you haven't been running, right? So just like you said, I'm not just going to go out and go like, all right, you should go run 3 miles. Like, let's start building the habit. Let's set a time. Let's get up and go for a 1 mile run. Doesn't matter how hard it is. Doesn't matter how much you get pushed. That's not what it's about right now. It's about like building the habit of doing it. And then we can work up to pushing the pace and make it tougher and run farther. But inevitably what happens is, say I get on a treadmill and I say, I'm going to run a mile or 10 minutes, whichever is longer, right? So if I get to 10 minutes and I haven't finished the mile, I'm going to finish the mile. But I have to be really running pretty slow. I can run faster than that.
Yeah.
So I usually try to say I'm going to go 10 minutes on the treadmill to get back in the routine.
Okay.
And people listening, judging me, I get it. Okay. But here's where it gets tough is every time what will happen is I'll get to about 8 minutes and I'll feel that urgency of like, I'm almost done and I don't feel like I've done very much. Incline goes to 10, speed goes to 10. I'm like 2 minutes finishing with a sprint. Next day, can't hardly walk. And I'm about to throw up. I feel like I can't catch my breath. But like, that's not a complaint. That's a saying like, for me, that feels like, okay, now I did a workout.
Yeah.
But the problem is now the next day I won't go work out because I'm so sore from
pushing yourself
my
past
lungs burn
what you were ready for.
Right. Because I tried to go too hard too soon. Because I don't know how to like dial it back. It's like, feels like sometimes I only have like idle and pedal to the ground.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like either I'm going to just play around and have some fun, or it's serious and it's 100%. Like there's no in between sometimes. So earlier I touched on some stories.
Yep.
And we were talking about the 6 miler, 5 miler, 7 miler, whatever it is. I've heard through the years of stories before I was there involving the 7 miler. And I don't know if you have firsthand experience on any of those. But some of the ones I've heard about involve world champion Tyron Woodley, Matt Pell. Any stories with any of those guys that you know firsthand of? I've heard and I don't want to like lead because I don't know what's factual and what I've heard is not factual, right? But I heard about one where somebody, maybe Barker too, I believe it was T Wood, they got a ride. Like called a girl and got picked up or something.
That's jogging my memory, and I think that I think you might be right on that. I don't honestly remember the exact details, but I think that
Excuse me.
Yes, I think there was a couple guys that as they were running. Now you got to remember this is pre-cell phone days, so you can't call somebody.
Right, that's true.
We still had the house phone back then, so you couldn't call somebody on the run. I think now that you're saying it, that maybe there's some girls passing by, maybe even other athletes who they knew, saw them, and I do think you're right, because I think they got picked up at one part, dropped off towards the end, ran the last little bit to finish off.
Then the other one, I guess, I think what I heard on this one was that it was maybe Barker and Pell. I don't know if this happened simultaneously or if they maybe both did it at different times. But what they proposed to Smith was a deal. That like, okay, say that we have 4 weeks of 7 milers. If I run all my 7 milers in one day, can I be done?
I'm pretty sure that was a Scott Barker thing. I think that was a Scott Barker thing. And I think he attempted, and I think he got about 2.5.
That was what was in my mind as well. It was about 2.5 of them.
And then just died, because, I mean, it also, when we were running these...
Well, it's over a marathon to run 4 of them.
Yes.
It's like 28 miles, right?
And you got to remember, this is 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It was usually hot.
Right.
It's in the fall, but it's before the weather has broken. So a lot of times those 5 miles, you're sweating. And you're sweating a lot, hence the reason they gave us a little water break.
I got my own very embarrassing, but very funny.
All right.
7-miler story. Okay. So I'll set you up with, especially my first 3 years, I didn't do things necessarily right. I wouldn't say I was lazy, but I wouldn't say that I was giving everything I had all the time. And some of that I think was also my own perceptions, right? Like, I'm short, I'm stocky, like I'm not a good runner. I think some of it is that learned helplessness. You know, like when you hear kids that are like, I'm not a math person. It's like, you're like 7. How do you know you're not a math person? Like, how do you know that? And I think that I was just always like kind of put in my head that I wasn't really a good runner.
Yep.
So I accepted it and was like, oh, yeah, I'm just towards the end. Not towards the end. I was always middle of the pack. That's all. Now, to give you like frame of reference, my last 2 years, I was always in the top 10 to 7. And my senior year was always in the top 5. Generally like 3 or 4. You had Chandler usually was a good runner, and then we had a few younger classmen that were, 33s, 41s that were long and lean, had good frame for running.
If I remember, Tyler McCormick was a really good runner.
Yeah, he wasn't there my senior year, but yeah, he always beat me.
Okay.
Like the years that he was a year ahead of me. So when I was a junior, he was definitely always beating me. He was one of the ones ahead of me. But so what happened was, this was probably like my first or second year, maybe. So I was still like I don't have any pull, you know what I mean? Like just a freaking underclassmen that nobody cares about. And I remember that we went out to eat at Buffalo Wild Wings the night before. And I must have been served some undercooked chicken. And right about, I don't know, 2 steps into the 7-miler, so with about 6.99 miles left to go, I just feel this like rumble in my stomach.
That's the worst when you're running.
Oh my God. Oh my, and like, so basically what happened was I ran the entire thing with like my butt cheeks clenched together at a waddle that like was barely faster than a walking. Needless to say, I was last person done. 7 miles, my best time ever was 42 minutes. This one took me over an hour. So, okay, so at Providence, there's that Shell, like Arena Liquor.
Yep.
And as I'm passing by there, I start doing the math in my head of how long it would take me if I stopped to go to the bathroom there versus like how much time I have left. Because there's not much left.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Once you at that point, like you said, that's when you had your kick, right?
That's the ending.
I can see, you can't see because there's a little curve there, but you can see the end in sight in your mind. Like, you can visibly, or in your head, you can picture like this little bit of road I got left and then Champions Hill and I'm done. So, like I'm doing the math coming up, waddling up on Shell and Arena Liquor, and I'm going, nah. Once I stop to go to the bathroom with this situation, it's going to be like a 15-minute.
It's over.
Like, I said, I got to be like about an hour already right now, and I can't do like an hour and 15 minutes. I'm going to get up there, and there's going to be nobody there. They're going to have like packed it in, been like, guess who lost him? And so I'm like, screw it, I'm just going to finish. So I'm going, waddling, and I turn the corner, and I look up the hill, and everybody's done with the buddy push-ups and squats and anything you got to do after you run. And Smith's in it. He starts yelling like, hurry up, you're the last one. What's taking you so long? And I'm like butt cheeks clenched together, waddling up this hill at like, I mean, snails are passing me. I'm going so slow. But what I see is right when I get at the bottom of the hill where it starts inclining, to my left I notice a porta potty.
Set up for the football games?
Yes, so it's down behind the, we're going up this way?
We're gonna stop here. I'm gonna wait for a second, let you finish this story, and then I'll mention something about this here. Okay,
so what happens is I pass this porta potty in that like tailgate area down back behind the stadium, south side of the stadium, below the hill of the arena, of the basketball arena, and I see this porta potty, and I'm like, oh yeah, but I gotta finish first. So I'm waddling up the hill, and Smith and Pritz are yelling the whole time, like, just how slow I am. Just,
Yeah.
Like, what could you possibly...
Yeah.
Because they have no idea. They have no idea.
Yeah.
Like, how are you... Like, I was behind Mike Gunzelman, heavyweight out of Park Hill. Not knocking on him. He's just heavyweight.
Yeah.
They're not going to run a world record 7-miler. Everybody. I was the last out of everyone. And I get to the top of the hill, and I get both feet across the line that is like the designated finishing crack. And I just turn around and take off back down the hill. Didn't say a word. Like, I just turned around and went. And he's yelling at me like, where the heck do you think you're going? I went down there. It was like the first or second 7-miler of the year. So I think it was still August. If not, it was like the first week in September.
Yeah.
It was like 95 degrees outside. I get in that porta potty. It smells awful. Like, everything is just terrible, right? And it's so bad that I actually didn't even lock the door. Like, I leaned forward while sitting and held the door and like fanned it open and closed just to get air moving, because it was like a sauna hot box of poop and
you're already sweating and smell
ran
nasty.
7 miles. It's just it was terrible. That was the worst one for 7-miler I ever had. Luckily though, it was early in my career, because every year after that I just think of that and be like, this is gonna be easy compared to that one.
That's a good point. So I stopped us here. We're on the edge of campus. You can see our baseball field across the way, and the cornfields. When the corn's up, my wife calls it the Field of Dreams, because it looks like the baseball field in the middle of the cornfield here on the edge of campus. But I stopped because we're going to walk up this hill, and the gravel hill, a lot of our guys call it. There were 2 hills, this one and another one down further by our soccer stadium.
Okay.
That the alumni used to run back in the day, and one of them was called Heartbreak Hill. One of them was called Agony Hill. I'm pretty sure that this is Agony Hill, and this is actually...
Look at this little worm. He's about to fry. I'm throwing him in the weeds.
There you go. That's a way to do a good deed for that little fella.
All right, sorry.
Not a problem. So this is obviously a pretty big hill, and it's not so steep, but it's long. So this is one we'll run. We're going to come out
it's
here.
It's steep enough.
Yes,
if you're listening,
it's a tough hill.
You can't see it, and it's steep.
So this is, you had mentioned pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone, and as athletes we did that a lot, as coaches we tend not to do that very much. But
right.
A few years ago, probably 3 years ago, we're running the hill, and I usually do a few of the sprints with the guys. We jog out here, and I'll do it. I like to stay in shape. I want to be able to still wrestle with these guys.
Sure.
Think I'm young, type deal. So we had a kid, you probably actually know him, Kyle Hostetter. He's out of Neosho, Missouri. A little shout out to Cody Crocker. He was one of Crocker's guys. But Kyle was an 84-pounder, so he's got some size on me. I was a 49-pounder, walk around about 70 probably right now. And Kyle was the odd man out. And mostly we were doing sprints, but we did a couple buddy carries. So I'm like, all right, Kyle, let's go. I'll jump on your back. Well, I jump on his back. We get up there, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do it too. So I tell him, Kyle, jump on my back. He's probably about 195. And I'm cruising. I'm doing all right. And right up here, it kind of levels for a second, and then you get that last little false peak. There you go. That last little hill. And I'm telling you what, Marcus, I'm up here. My legs are burning. I've got that stomach churning that you were talking about. Not nearly as bad, but when the stomach's churning, your lungs are burning. And I get up here and I'm like, I can't do this. I don't know what I was thinking. This was stupid. But then it clicks in, hey, I'm the leader of this program. I can't quit.
You can't quit in the middle
I can't quit. And I get up here and I'm like, about to drop. I'm just holding on as hard as I can on that buddy carry, holding the hands there. And I just said, I got to power through it. And I got to the top. I made it through. But it was...
and you're alive today to talk about it.
It was a very poor decision. I regretted it, probably.
Well, once you're in the middle, though, I got to support that decision.
I couldn't quit here.
You can't.
I couldn't quit here.
Well, how are you going to look kids in the eyes and tell them that, I know it hurts and I know it sucks, but you got to push through.
Yeah.
Unless you're me, and then you don't, because you can just stop in the middle.
No, it's funny, and that's one of the things I tell our guys sometimes is, I'm not going to put you guys through something that I never did, and luckily, between all my great coaches over the years and just pushing myself, mentally. Got a lot of that from my dad, who was a real hard worker, and
shout out to Jack Spates.
And to Jack Spates, my mom as well, mother of 4 kids, so a good background there. But I'm gonna push myself hard as an athlete. I feel like I really push myself, so I feel comfortable pushing our guys.
We're freaking out in the middle of nowhere right now.
So yeah, I'll give you a little context here. This is
still campus.
We're still on campus.
Because it feels like I'm going deer hunting right now.
Yeah, we're kind of on the edge of campus over here. The baseball field is kind of the corner. And this is actually something neat they were doing. They have a lot of different things. You'll see right there they have beehives.
Bees.
Yep, and so they're doing beehives. This is a hydration system that they were probably engineering, agriculture engineering, or things, and they basically were doing some experiments down here, growing some crops. But we're on the backside of campus. We're not too far. The lake is back behind here. The Tower Lake apartments, which are now Cougar Village, that were the original apartments on campus. It was a commuter school for a long time.
Is that where all the good-looking older ladies stay?
My wife thought we should do a little play off on something with that, but I didn't know how appropriate that would be. But yeah, so the apartments are over here. We're walking back. The VC where we started is right around here. It's not too far. We're going to walk through the intramural fields.
Yeah.
But as we're telling stories, I got another one that you'll appreciate. So
freaking love stories.
Yeah, I know. One of our freshmen who you're near and dear with is Saul Irvin,
right?
Of the Irvin family. He's had a couple brothers that wrestled here. His dad Robert and his Uncle Tim wrestled here. Tim, multiple-time All-American.
Shout out to Isaac, his older brother that wrestled here.
Isaac was here as well.
That was before your tenure, right? Or
he was right before. He unfortunately was out due to injury.
Yeah, shoulder stuff.
At that point, yep.
He had the same surgery I had. We've kind of reminisced back and forth about that.
Yeah.
Shared our experiences with how terrible that is.
So I actually have 2 Irvin stories. The first was my very first recruiting visit. I got here on a Monday.
Also, throw this out.
Okay.
Caleb Irvin, Robert's son, and Saul's older brother, who wrestled at University of Illinois,
is having a baby tonight.
Today. They induced her and everything. She's
on the way.
It's probably already born now. I've
Okay.
turned my phone off, so
Okay.
I'm not up to date. But
that's
congratulations to them.
Yes, for sure. And Isaac is a few weeks away, I think, as well.
Right.
So Saul's going to be an uncle. Or maybe he is an uncle. So I have 2 Irvin stories. The first one started with I'd been here for about a week, and Brock Irvin was coming out, Tim's son. Mm-hmm. And so he comes out on a visit, and it was funny because I didn't really know. I knew how to get from the dorm where I was staying. They put us up there to my office, and that's about it. I was 7 a.m. in the office, 7 p.m. going home making recruiting calls. So I didn't know anything. So Tim actually gave me the very first tour. And I was, giving them a tour of campus on his recruiting visit. But
so you're getting a tour while giving a tour.
Yes, and so that's actually how I know a lot of these places. The Robert story is...
and I imagine that there's some stories that aren't going to be told that Tim told you during his days on campus.
Yes, if you ever come to one of our alumni events, you will have a good time because they were stud wrestlers back in the 70s and 80s, and they had a good time as well. So there's some great stories flowing around. But we were driving through here in the golf cart with Saul and Robert. And Robert, I probably shouldn't even attempt the Kentucky accent, but Robert told me, yeah, right here is where I have my tree stand, right up in these woods right here. So you weren't really supposed to hunt on campus, but back then, we've got a lot of woods, so they were shooting deer out here, and, venison's a healthy alternative, so it's good for weight cutting.
Well, the Iowa guys, a couple years ago, got in trouble for hunting rabbits on campus.
Yeah.
That's the problem. See, rabbits are too out in the open. If you hunt deer, nobody's going to see you because you got to go in hidden areas to see the deer.
Yeah, so somewhere in here is the remnants of Robert's tree stand from the 80s.
It looks like a good spot, to be honest. There's some really nice grass over with the fields.
Well,
but you got cover over here. So.
And I don't think these intramural fields were here at that time. So this was probably just all field like this kind of.
So in reality, it was probably even better then because it was actually probably even more secluded.
Yes, exactly. And they could walk through the woods from Tower Lake.
Yeah.
The apartments, they could walk through the woods and over to here. So yeah,
That's a very common thing when because I coached 5 years in Kentucky with those guys, and man, you got to revamp your practice schedule once deer season hits.
My dad tells a good story of Ricky Bonomo, who was a legendary wrestler back in the day at I believe Lock Haven, but I'm not 100% positive on that. And every year he quit the team. He was sick of wrestling, and he was done, and he wasn't coming back. And that coincided with deer season. And then after the month, he was back on the team. And I think Ricky was a 2 or 3 time NCAA champion. But yeah, every year for deer season.
Gotta get that deer hunt, man.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
So yeah, so there's a couple Irvin stories for you.
So what else? Who's the big guys you got in? The big recruits. You guys had a pretty good class. What was?
We had.
I'm trying to remember what they ranked the classes. Who was that?
We were 20th on flow, and actually we had a couple commitments after it came out. So I would have really liked to seen, one of the guys, sure. Eric Bone, is 220 pounder, worked out with Ben Askren, one of his club guys, and was ranked in the country, and he actually signed after those rankings came out. But I think we were 20 on flow and 25 on intermat. So it was a big class in general. We had a small roster coming back, graduated a few guys, and so we just numbers wise we needed a lot of guys.
Right.
And then it was also a big class as far as studs, and honestly, I'll try to run down it real quick and hit everybody. Austin Macias was a 2-time Illinois state champ. I think placed in Fargo 5 or 6 times, finalist in Greco, I think twice. Aaron Shoeless was ranked in the top 100. Aaron was ranked 90th, and he placed in Fargo, placed at Super 32. Unfortunately, didn't win state as a senior because he had shoulder surgery, and it locked out in the quarterfinals of state, and he had been wrestling with it all year, but couldn't finish. Honor to win is a Chicago area guy, and Honor was only a state qualifier, but he started wrestling late. I think he started wrestling 8th or 9th grade.
Nice.
He wrestled for one of our alumni, Tom Chernich. I believe Tom was an All-American here in the late 80s, early 90s, and is the head coach at Geneva now. So Honor, Saul Irvin, who we mentioned. Saul actually won the Schultz Award for Kentucky. 3-time champ, 1-time runner-up, and you probably coached him for a few of those. Did you coach him for any of the state championships? Or were you
I had him
here?
his 8th grade year, which you can wrestle
varsity in 8th grade there.
So he wrestled for our varsity team as an 8th grader.
Okay, so
and I had Saul Baby. That was our little guy.
Saul Baby,
probably weighed like 87 pounds, wrestled 106 and crushing dudes.
Still a little stud.
Yeah.
They actually just turfed this field in last
looks really
year.
nice.
So yeah, this is where intramural soccer.
You need to come to my yard like this.
And football, yeah. So we're walking through the intramural fields for the people that can't see it, and then obviously we can see the VC again over here. So Saul Irvin, Coleman Brainerd. Coleman is out of Rolla, Missouri. He was a 4-time placer. Unfortunately, he was same thing. He wasn't able to win a state championship this year. He got slammed and got a concussion in the semis, so he advanced to the finals but wasn't able to wrestle. But Coleman's real tough. And then Nick, I always say it wrong. I want to say Blease. Nick Blyce out of Michigan. His older brother wrestled for Minnesota. He was 3rd in the state of Michigan this year, losing to a real tough kid. And then our biggest recruit on paper is Justin Ruffin out of Georgia. Justin was ranked, I think at the time he signed, he was ranked in the 50s, and then he actually beat Artelona twice, the Fargo national champ, once during the year, once after. And so jumped up to number 25 in the rankings. And I had mentioned him. I had just found these grass trails, and he came on his visit on a Monday. Tuesday, it was their fall break, so it was kind of a weird time. So we actually drove all around on these grass trails and stuff. And I see Justin's got his phone out, and I'm old. I don't know what Instagram is, we've got one for our team, but I'm like, what are you doing over there? He's like, oh, I'm doing the Instagram story, or maybe it was Snapchat story,
sure.
I don't know. But he was doing the story as we were going, so that was a pretty fun experience, and I found all these cool trails through the woods and everything. So Justin, and then we had a transfer, and this is funny, we have 12 freshmen and a transfer. Kevin Schwetner was a two-time placer at Pontiac High School in Illinois, and then went to Plattsville, I believe, last year, and then, just wanted to really give his hand at the D1 level, so came back and transferred in with us. But we have 12 freshmen and then Kevin, and they've all got to do the beginning of the year stuff,
right.
Some of the upperclassmen don't. And so it's always, everything's like freshman plus Kevin on our group text. Or this weekend, we had a speaking specialist who was like, hey, freshman plus Kevin. So that's one of the things we laugh about now. Our guys think it's funny. Poor Kevin gets picked on. But Kevin's doing a great job for us. And then Ryan Yarnell, who you might know.
I do know Ryan. Ryan's wrestled for me, I think, two and a half years.
Yep.
Something like that. I mean, we've only been open for 3 years, so.
Yeah. And Ryan's great. Ryan, tell me if I'm wrong, was third and first in the state of Missouri?
Yep. His last 2 years, just a plug that I just said he wrestled for me for 2 years.
Yeah.
Last 2 years, I took third and then first.
And his senior year really wasn't challenged very much, I don't
No, I think he had a couple close matches, but that's about it.
Yeah.
He's a great scrambler. He spent some time with Ironman, which, when I say that, he still went and worked out with Ironman, but Ironman from where he lives is like an hour and 45 minutes, 2 hours.
Yep.
So it was just a better situation, and Mike and I are close, so I didn't want people to think that was some sort of taking one of his kids. It was just geographically, it was a lot closer for him to start coming to me, and I know Mike real well, and we talked about it, and Ryan had a lot of good scramble, mat wrestling abilities coming from Mike, so he's really hard to finish on, really tough to wrestle.
And Mike is great. I wrestled with him my last, I want to say, I think 2 years he was there. I know for sure he was there my last year, but we got to be good friends, and he really helped me a lot. I give a lot of credit to all my coaches. We've mentioned Smith and Horton and Pritz, who was one of my main guys, and then my last couple years, Ironman came in, and actually Scott Schatzman. I did a lot with Scott, and actually lived with him my senior year when he was in law school.
By the way, if Scott or anybody knows Scott listening to this, he hasn't returned my call because I called him to ask him to be on the podcast. So
you got to get.
He's my lawyer too, so he should return my calls. But
we got to get a hold of Scott
because Scott. I'm not
Scott. For the people that don't know him, we'll have to give a real quick background. Was the first ever 4-time Missouri state champion. Was he undefeated?
First time
4-time undefeated.
Yep.
State champion, and then went on to be a 3-time, I believe, All-American at Northwestern. Beat me twice. So I'm not happy about that. But, and then got his MBA from Northwestern, and then went on to get his law degree from Mizzou. So Scott is a stud wrestler, and he's stud academically and just, knowledge. Just a very smart dude. Yes. So Scott actually came over for our Northwestern match last year. We had him come over, which was awesome. We really appreciated that. So real quick before we go, we can slide back that way and go back up the trail, or we could go this way. How you doing on time?
I got about 0 minutes left.
About 0? So let's go.
I've got a meeting over back in St. Louis, which is about 35 minutes away. Trying to give myself enough time to get over there, and I wish that we could stay here all day because I could walk around for another 2 hours.
It's nice out here,
having
right?
a conversation, joining campus, hanging out with you, which that's the thing that I like about this podcast is like, maybe we wouldn't walk around campus, but it's not that uncommon for us to get together and talk for an hour or more.
Yeah. And a little background on that for us. Obviously, I knew Marcus from his time at Missouri, a lot of mutual friends with Bader and guys like that, Ben. And then when I moved back here, you were coaching out at Union County in Kentucky, which is a few hours away, and we mentioned that connection. And so we got to know each other a lot better through that.
Sure.
And then once you've moved to St. Louis, we get together, and you've helped us with our camps the last few years. I've come over to your place a number of times.
We both have little girls that are...
Yes.
How old is Viv now?
Viv is a year and about to be 5 months.
Oh,
so.
She's quite a bit older than So I find myself, this is something that I've thought about multiple times, like, wow, she's way older than my daughter. It's like, my daughter's 11 months, so really they're like 6 months apart.
Yeah.
Which is like in the scheme of like when you're an adult.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Whoa, our birthdays are we're only 6 months apart. When they're like 6 months old, it's like, you're twice as old as her.
Yeah, was Jameson born in September?
October. So
okay.
This last weekend, she just had she was 11 months.
Okay.
So she, first birthday coming up, okay, I got something else I'm going to talk about.
All right.
This will be fun. So her birthday's coming up, and apparently I'm like, we're the worst parents because we didn't want to like make a big deal, right? And then everybody's like, you got to have a birthday party. Like, I don't know. I mean, I don't feel like she's going to remember it. It seems like kind of a...
We did like 3 because we had my mother-in-law Ann came in, and then my mom came in, and then we did the one at the school. So yeah, it was like a week-long celebration.
So I'm going, this is what I said then. Fine. We'll have a little get-together, some family and friends. I'm going to make the cake though. We're not spending money on a cake. I'm going to make the cake. So last week, well, you know, because again, like I said earlier, I'm not an idiot. I know my own limitations. I know what I'm capable of. But I know also that you can't, just because I think I can do something doesn't mean that I can do it right the first time.
Okay.
So I was like, all right, I need to do a couple practice cakes.
I like it. That's smart thinking.
So last week I did my first run of practice cake. And dude, I'm telling you what, might have to extend the academy and include a bakery. Because
what flavor are you going with?
So this one that I baked was a triple 3-layer cake. Had dark chocolate cake in the middle, or on the bottom, strawberry cake in the middle, and dark chocolate cake again on the top. So black, pink, black, with a white vanilla buttercream frosting.
Oof, that sounds pretty good.
I ate the whole thing. So I think next week I'm gonna make another one, and we'll see how heavy I can get by her first birthday. No, it was fun, and we've been addicted to this Netflix show, The Great British Baking Show.
I've seen it once before. I've not sat down and watched it.
I should say
I know
Katie's addicted. So
I know what you're
I'm not
talking.
that addicted,
Yeah.
but I enjoy watching it. So if she watches it, I'll watch it.
Yeah.
Well, I've learned a lot because I sit there and watch it.
Yeah.
And so it definitely made that first run a much more of a success than it would have been probably if I wasn't watching some sort of show about baking. But that's one of my little projects for the next couple weeks is to practice and get a good skill set in baking that cake so that she can just tear it apart and smash it and rub it all over her face.
It's funny that you mentioned that because in college, that's part of the way I learned to cook. I knew a little bit from my mom, and we tried to eat healthy in college, so we had the foreman, we'd cook the grill stuff on, but I would when I was cutting weight and I really wanted to eat things, I would watch the Food Network. So that's one of the things me and Bader would sit there and watch the Food Network.
Food porn.
So that's what, yeah, it was, and then when we got done, we would go and try to make the things, that we saw one time, tried to do fried Oreos, which was delicious, and some things like that. So it looks like we're rounding up here. So the last thing I want to talk about,
Sure.
unless you have anything else, is we got to talk about the name of this podcast. What's
the name of the podcast?
What's the word?
Well, so my first iteration of the title, it was just a working title. I haven't really put it anywhere. Was something to the effect of like wrestlers getting coffee and telling stories.
Okay.
Now, that may seem silly for the people who have listened because this is episode 2 and we haven't got coffee yet. But when I got to Manly, he was just finishing up team pictures and he was hungry, so he wanted to go eat.
Yeah.
And then you guys, today we had some scheduling conflicts that happened.
Yep, I
Big
apologize.
deal, all good. But we were cut short on time, so we just didn't have a lot of time, and it was perfectly it was great the way it was. It was walking around campus. We didn't need to go get coffee.
Yep.
But I got a feeling that's probably what most of them will be
sit down
in the future
and have some coffee.
Or grab a coffee and walk around or, something.
Yep.
Just because what I think is that puts people at ease because it's familiar.
Yeah.
And that's what I tend to do is not go, hey, we called it wrestlers getting coffee and telling stories, so we got to go get a coffee.
Yeah,
I'm going to do whatever they're comfortable with because that's what makes for the best conversations when you're comfortable and you're in a familiar environment.
Yeah. I will say for me it was nice because we walked down the trail and walked around to some different things. It brought up some stories, obviously, with some of the alumni and things like that. So, yeah, definitely I think this would be better than just a sit down and,
right.
we're having this conversation.
And I got some steps in.
There you go. Yeah.
Work that cake off.
Do you have your steps on your phone?
I used to, I had I'm like, I don't do the iPhone. Anything. I don't know. I've always had Androids and I don't have a problem with them and I enjoy them and I don't want to change it over. So I don't have an Apple Watch, but I had a Samsung watch and I freaking lost the charger for it like 4 months ago and I can't find it. So I was keeping track of all my steps and my activity until I lost my charger for my watch. So now I got to order a new charger for this watch so that I can get back on it.
I usually don't track my steps. I get enough workouts with the guys and things like that. But it was funny, and you'll appreciate this. At Fargo this year, I think it was Dominic Moyer from NIU was one who brought it up, and then we were all, I think it was Trace, or not, I'm sorry, not Trace. It was their other assistant coach, and then I think who else? Mike Poeta might have been in there with us, but we were all comparing how many steps you do in a day of Fargo, and it was a lot. I don't remember.
I can see that because as soon as you said that, what I thought of is like anytime when I'm at Fargo and I don't have I'm looking at the notifications. There's nobody up right now that I'm responsible for. There's none of our guys from our state wrestling. I'll just take off walking. I'll be like, it's going to be like 2 minutes before I bump into somebody that I know.
Or go look for another good match.
Yeah,
that's true. You see
that's usually where you find them.
Yeah, exactly.
You just come up and see somebody like, hey, what's going on? Like, oh, so-and-so's wrestling so-and-so. Like, oh, okay, cool. I'll sit here and watch this match now.
That sounds like a good match.
And then when that's over, you get up and walk to somewhere else.
And then we'll set up 2 nights.
What's up?
A little hot out there, boys?
It's hot.
It's hot. We covered some miles.
We just got back to the office.
This is the happening place right here.
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
Yeah,
So that is, we're back in my office now, and outside we just walked through the assistant's office, and that is our weekly academic meeting where we meet with our academic advisors to go over how everybody's doing academically and make sure everybody's going to study hall and all that fun stuff.
And what they're supposed to do.
Yep.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you making some time for me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to scoot back over to St. Louis, see if I can make this meeting in time.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to do it. It was a lot of fun, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, you'll have to be on again.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks, Marcus.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. We will go through the sponsors here real quick. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Ryan Feager at Goldwater Bank. If you're thinking about a move or a way to save some money, Goldwater Bank is your answer. Rates that are among the lowest in the country, and with their experienced hand-picked staff, you have yourself a pretty easy decision. I've personally asked any question I could think of, and I got an immediate answer. That's how well-versed their team is. Trust me, if you are at least thinking there is a reason for you to reach out to a lender, make your first call to Goldwater Bank, and I guarantee it'll be your last. Plus, being a federally chartered bank means they are among the elite few to be granted that status. So basically what that means is that no matter where you're thinking about moving in the country, they're going to be there for you. No fluff, no filler, just straightforward answers. For you or anyone you know, I personally recommend Ryan Feager with Goldwater Bank Mortgage, located right down south of St. Louis in Arnold, Missouri. You can call him at 636-287-0786. Ryan Feager with Goldwater Bank. Reach out to him, see if they can help you out, save you some money. We are also brought to you by Thoroughbred Wrestling Academy. Listen, you only get one shot at bringing your kids up. Why mess around with something that's that serious? Make sure you're bringing them up in the right environments with the right mindsets and the right approaches. TWA uses a science-based best practice approach to developing happy, healthy, and confident wrestlers who are not only prepared to reach the highest levels of wrestling, but also personal development aimed at creating young men and women who are prepared to be successful in all endeavors. TWA is consistently able to utilize an individualized approach based on what's best for each unique student. We don't just develop kids, we develop your kids. TWA is now enrolling all ages from 5 to 18 years, no experience necessary. We are also opening registration next week for our youth preseason camp, which will be November 3rd, I believe. That should be a Saturday. Whatever that Saturday is, should be the 3rd. You can see the website for more details, twamissouri.com.